All right. We're gonna open the City of Gerhart, April 15th, 2026 Budget Committee. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest by anyone?
No.
No.
No. Call for nominations for a chairperson for the Budget Committee.
Kurt, did you do it last time?
No, I didn't. I was recorder. Well, I would nominate Carl.
I'll second that.
Carl will keep his mouth shut.
You know, and I do that in the spirit of, you asked some really great questions last time. You're a very organized person, good communicator, and I think that's what that role needs, right?
I second all of that.
Oh, see, thank you guys.
You're our vote of confidence.
Are there any other nominations? Is there a consensus to move forward with Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Hearing more than half. Okay, move forward then.
Wait, yes, and I'll move it to him because he gets to be the official one now.
So he takes over from here? He does. Okay.
And what does he do, just?
He requests for recorder
Okay,
and then turns it over to me.
right, that I can do. So are there any nominations for a recorder?
I nominate Robert Lee be a recorder.
I have some conflicts later, so I don't know if I'll be here or not.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the same boat. I may or may not be able to be our last meetings. Kurt, would you like to be our recorder again? I'll volunteer. Oh, okay. There you go. I'll do it. I'll
Thank you.
volunteer Jennifer. I did it last year.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Is there a second? We need a second?
A second, sorry.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure.
Ms. Justine does most of the work on it. That's an easy role.
Yeah. Yeah,
And with that, I'll turn it over to Justine for the budget edit, correct?
Correct. So we are going to move on to receiving the document. I want to thank everybody and welcome. We appreciate your time and effort. There's a lot of information in a short amount of time, and hopefully we give you a month to kind of process and then come back and you can ask questions anytime. And then throughout the month, I would encourage you, if you see people or have questions, to make sure that you let us know. Public comment is not for today, so the budget committee can talk and deliberate, but our public hearing is in May. So there were some correspondence submitted, and I felt like the comments may or may not influence another decision in May, so I decided to give it to you early, but I will submit them into the public hearing also. Just a brief overview of the material provided. There's the agenda, there's the budget narrative, there's the budget document, which includes the budget message. There is this book for those of you who I thought didn't have one. Some of you already had it. If you didn't get it and you want another copy, just let me know and I'll make one. It's part of the document that was received in the agenda for if you clicked on one of the links, it went to the LLC and it was in there. You didn't get one? Is it the same? Oh, you didn't get one? No. Okay, so I guess this is the revenue. And so you had already, I had given the council.
I probably already have one of those.
The council had gotten one a couple of months ago, but if you can't find it, let me know. So I only printed it, I think I only gave it to those who I thought didn't have one. So if you want another one, just let me know. I gave the legal guide for collecting lodging tax in Oregon from LOC. It is also part of the link that I had sent earlier, but this is a specific document on that page that I think has some useful information. I gave House Bill 4148, which was passed in the legislative session, and to date, I don't think it's been signed by the governor, but anticipates this is what we're gonna be talking about, transit lodging tax, and this is the reform to that. So I wanted to put the most current, it would be supplemental to this. And I put the correspondence in there. I received 2 correspondences, one at 12:37 and one at 1:04 from the same person. They seem similar to me, but they weren't exactly worded the same. And so I just want to submit them both so that you have them in case they have a different meaning for each one. And then I put a revenue and expenditure. This is from the April finance report. It is current as of March 2026 of what we spent this fiscal year. So what this could be helpful if you're looking at the budget and you want to know what you think we've spent so far. This is what we've spent so far. The first few pages are our revenues. The last pages are our expenditures. Just remember when you're looking at it and you look at the budget, you think, oh, well, she's way under. We still have a couple more months. So we still have April, all of May, and all of June. This is just a complete month as of July 2025 through March 31st. So this is just to use as supplementary to when you're looking through the budget if you're interested in looking at numbers. Any questions before I get started?
I'd like to apologize to everybody for being late. I was in the heat of the moment. We were closing. We did close at 6:02, and you know, you got to be there to say what you want to say during the closing part of any kind of transaction. And I was making clam chowder at the same time, and I just didn't listen to my alarm, and I apologize to everybody sincerely, but I believe I've got a small excuse. Not big, but it's small. And especially to you, Master of Money.
Yes. So we're gonna go over the budget document. I am going to use the budget narrative. I encourage you to write notes, flag anything. Whatever you need as I move along, you're welcome to interrupt me if you would like. I want you to hear the information, process it, and then come back. I also want to read the budget message out loud because one of the requirements is you get the budget message, and if I read it out loud, everybody can be assured they get it. So we have the budget document.
Was anybody missing a budget narrative? We ended up with an extra down this way.
Good. Okay. So we'll get started with the budget message for the fiscal year 2026, 2027. This document, the budget document, represents the financial support for the operations of the city of Deerheart for the 2026-2027 fiscal year, and the city is required to provide a balanced budget. The ability to maintain a balanced and adequate budget is becoming problematic. The cause of this financial crisis is straightforward. Revenue streams are not growing as fast as expenditures. City Council is aware of the situation and is committed to exploring all options to meet community needs while ensuring staff have the necessary tools to achieve those objectives. While this budget was prepared with no staff reductions, department budgets required significant sacrifices in materials, services, and capital outlay. The city's primary operating fund, which is the general fund, had to be reduced 2.4%. The 2 largest general fund revenues are property tax and transient lodging tax, which we'll refer to as TLT. The city continues to see strong, stable growth in property tax. However, the growth is limited and highly regulated by Measures 5 and 50. TLT also remains a strong, viable revenue stream. However, there are local restrictions on short-term rental growth, as well as strong regulations that impact any tax rate increases. City staff have weighed the options for increasing the TLT and determined that it is a revenue option worthy of proposing in the budget. This budget has been prepared with an increase in TLT from 7% to 15%. Gearhart's current 7% TLT rate was imposed with Ordinance 691 on November 2nd, 1994, and is considered grandfathered under Oregon House Bill 2267, which was in 2003, which allows the city to maintain the 7% of TLT collected in the general fund. The proposed 8% increase will require the city to put a portion of the net TLT revenues towards tourism promotion or tourism-related facilities. The city has resisted increasing the TLT rates to avoid having to contribute to tourism-related activities. However, Oregon House Bill 4148, which was just passed in the short session, allows more local flexibility for TLT revenues. House Bill 4148 will allow the city to use up to 50%, whereas before it was only 30%, of net revenues for general government services, which means our general fund, while requiring the other 50%, and it used to be 70%, to be used for tourism-related spending. Exploring and implementing concepts such as ecotourism and sustainable tourism provides an opportunity to uphold Gearhart's comprehensive plan goals, as well as increase an essential revenue stream. Special revenue transient lodging, state mandated, Fund 42 has been added to the budget. And with the budget committee's support, the city will move forward with a formal approval process. The rate increase would become effective January 1st, 2027 to allow time for community input on the proposed changes.
Question,
Yes.
what would the community have authority to? Is this just gathering input? Is there?
Just gathering input.
Just have a chance to speak about?
The budget committee would just approve the ability to move forward. The council would approve an ordinance that was in place.
That would put the increased tax in place?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The city is again proposing an interfund loan of $300,000 to assist with paying expenses for the months of July, August, September, and October before it receives most of its property tax in November. The interfund loan will be borrowed from the Water Reserve Fund and will be transferred back as soon as the resources are available. Sound financial decisions have been made over the last few years to improve the water operating fund. Regrettably, personnel and operating costs continue to rise, and the only opportunity to offset these expenditures are through a rate increase. This budget has been prepared with a 10% increase on the base water rates, rounding to the nearest 10, effective July 21st, 2026. For reference, the base rate for a 2-month billing cycle for city residents with a 3/4 meter would increase from $53.05 to $58.40. Gearhart's building fund will again need a $10,000 general fund transfer to provide a financial safety net. Because of the structure of the city's building department, which is the third-party building official, it is state mandated that the city provide more stringent financial reporting. To comply, several years ago, the city moved those transactions from the general fund into a dedicated special revenue fund. This fund is required to be balanced, or revenues equals expenditures, and ideally independently solvent. When the fund is unable to meet its financial obligations, the city is responsible for providing support. Predicting activity within the department remains a challenge. Staff support is frequently required for general inquiries that do not always result in revenues. Furthermore, development continues to be restricted by Gearhart's limited property availability and the complexity of building requirements. The city may want to explore increasing building rates in the future. State Revenue Share Fund 45 is funded through apportionment allocations from the state. According to LOC, despite continued local revenue challenges and rising service costs, state shared revenues are often threatened through decreased shares of local governments as the state tries to balance its own budget. Gearhart has been experiencing these decreased revenues. The city has been trying to utilize this fund to support community events like the 4th of July and the street dance, community amenities like the dog waste disposal bags, centrally located access to public porta potty, and city reserve funds that were once in the general fund, while still providing allocations for community grant awards. Because community grants have been an important part of the state revenue sharing program, an allocation of $4,000 have been proposed for distribution to local organizations. Because revenue funds are critical when there are emergencies or failures of expensive items, an allocation of $10,500 have been proposed for transfers to support our city reserve funds. The 3 specific ones are the police car, the fire apparatus equipment, and the building reserve. Although the transfers amounts are minimal, they will continue efforts to increase the reserves. After some research and talking with the city's auditors, city staff would like the budget committee to approve merging the state revenue sharing fund into the general fund for the 2027-2028 budget cycle. It would not be for this cycle that we're looking at. It would be for the previous next year beyond that. The city council has formally endorsed moving forward with a general obligation bond to acquire property, address deficiencies, and make improvements in public safety and city facilities. Because the project has been approved as a priority, Public Safety City Bond Project Fund 80 has been placed in the budget to allow for appropriations, which is just the ability to accept revenue and pay out expenditures. There has also been allocations placed in the debt service fund for the payment of the bonds. Ultimately, taxpayers will decide the outcome of this financial obligation. Should the proposed measure not receive voter support, any appropriations will be removed from the budget prior to final approval in June of 2026. And please note that approving these appropriations does not signify support for the project. Rather, it authorizes the allocation of funds should the measure be approved by voters. Financially, Gerhart is in a conundrum. The city needs revenue to continue to operate at the same level, but also wants to preserve its low-density, semi-rural character. This budget provides an opportunity to take advantage of one of the most lucrative revenue streams. If the option is approved, it will be essential to listen to the impacted TLT businesses and collaboratively work to find ways to use TLT revenue that benefit the community. If the option is not approved, an alternative revenue source or additional reductions must be implemented. So if we don't decide to move forward, if you don't decide to move forward with a TLT increase, it means that we will need to find about $41,000 in the budget or come up with $41,000 to balance it. I use that extra revenue as the balancing tool. We also reduced as much as we could. We would have to take much more drastic measures to find that 41,000. It will be an unpleasant experience for us. We're going to move on to the budget detail. And I won't necessarily cover this first page in the budget narrative because all of you are experienced budget people now. We've been to more than one meeting. I'll just kind of talk about it. So, you know, we have to have a balanced budget. There are very stringent rules about what the budget looks like and how we present it, and that it must be balanced. We do have 5 different funds. We have the general fund, which is our main operating and really contains all of our departments, fire, police, those types of things. Then we have debt service fund, which pays our bills for GO bonds. Then we have the enterprise fund, which are funds that act like a business line, but they have a fee that offsets it. And we only have one, which is the water operating fund. We had always had 2 in there, which was the water reserve fund was also in there. But the state of Oregon contacted us last year because they review all of our audits. And they felt like that really was not a enterprise fund because we were not getting any fees in there. We were transferring money from the general fund and transferring money from the water fund to support the reserve fund. So they said that they really felt like it should be moved down to the capital project fund. So it's just a reclassification, doesn't change anything. It's just that it doesn't have fees imposed that support it. So that is new this year, and we moved that. We have our special funds that are restricted and have to be spent for specific things. And then we have our capital project funds. So those are our main funds in the budget. We are only going to talk about the significant things, so I'm not going to go line by line, but I am going to try to cover everything that I touched in one way or the other. We specifically are going to talk about some overall payroll assumptions. So I'm not going to talk about those each time because they're consistently changed throughout all of the payroll line personnel services items. And those are, the city of Deerheart is budgeting a 2.8% cost of living COLA salary increase with anniversary step when applicable, which is established by our 2026 COLA by the Social Security Administration. The city of Deerheart always uses that and has always used that as their COLA increase. And sanctioned in the employee handbook, so our handbook allows us to implement that. Workers' compensation rates have been increased by a projected 3%. Retirement, we continue to be a PERS member of Public Employees Retirement System. We are in the second biennium of their rates, so we didn't have any rate increases, but you'll see that it goes up because it's based on salary. But there were no actually specific rate increases. They are warning and have released their advisory rates, and Deerheart's rates are projected to increase not this July 1, but the next July 1, 4.13%. So we can already anticipate that coming down the line. Insurance benefits, which is the medical, dental, vision, life, accidental death, and dismemberment, and long-term disability. We use CIS, a company that most Oregon cities use. It was formed by the League of Oregon Cities. We have always used them here in Deerheart. And we provide insurance to all of our full-time employees. The city pays 100% of that premium. And based on information provided by CIS, there are increases in the budget of 11% for medical and 2% for dental. And this budget includes an annual employer contribution of up to $37,496 per employee. Also in this budget is implemented changes in employee medical coverage from Plan E to Plan F. So this change is only mid-year. So the CIS plan year runs January 1 to June 1. So the city would only see 6 months of savings this year on moving from Plan E to Plan F. Unemployment rates have been prepared with a 5% increase over the current budget. However, when you're looking through here, it's going to look like there was a significant decrease in the budget, even though I just said I increased them. And the reason why that is because when we adopted this budget, we were in the budgeting cycle and I had the rates that we had at the time and we increased them. And in January of this year, our rates decreased significantly. So I don't know if they're going to increase next year, but I did put an increase. But the number that I used is a lot smaller. So when you're looking through the budget and you think, oh, why did she drop that to half? It's because it had dropped and I'm using that number to base it on. Workers' assessment benefit also reflects a 5% increase, and the exact same thing happened with that happened with the unemployment rate. So it did go down, and so that number looks skewed in the budget too. There is a new tax that has passed. It's called the BOLI tax. And it is to fund the Bureau of Labor and Industry. And it is both an employer and an employee tax. Please don't think it looks ridiculous that I'm putting it in there. It's only for 6 months and it's not for very much money but it will grow and I need it as separate line items. So I think it's important that it go in the budget, even though it doesn't feel like a lot of money at this point. The city is aware of the Oregon paid leave, so many of you, if you are employers or an employee, you have to pay into Oregon paid family leave. We do not see that in our budget because our employees have to pay their portion, but the city does not have to pay anything because we're a small employer. So we don't have to pay the employer's portion. It doesn't impact our employees at all. They still get the same benefit. It's just in the legislature, if you were under a certain number of employees, you didn't have to pay the employer's portion. So it is not in our budget, but our employees still have full access to that benefit. So we're gonna start looking at page 1 and 2, the resources, which is also known as our revenues. And resources, line 1, beginning fund balance, cash on hand. The city anticipates a significant reduction in the beginning fund balance. The primary reason is due to general operating expenditures outpacing revenues. The city is being forced to deplete revenues, which makes it difficult to build any cash carryover. Please note that the historical data represents the American Rescue Plan grant revenues that were being carried forward until the city decided how to spend those restricted funds. And last fiscal year, the grant funds were transferred to the Water Reserve Fund and spent for water infrastructure projects. So when you look back, it looks like we have a lot of money in there. And we did have $230,000 in both of those that were just sitting there waiting for projects. So we didn't burn all of that money in 2 years. So that's why the historical data looks a little odd. Resources, line 2, property tax. Current was budgeted at a 3.25 increase with a reduction for discounts, other collectibles, and 2 potential refund credits. So Clatsop County Assessor's Office let us know that last year we had 3, this year we only have 2 PRCs, and therefore Pacific Core and Charter Communications. So just remember when companies challenge the assessment and it's over $1 million, the county is required to put a percentage of that away, which means they pull it from all of the taxing districts until that settlement is settled. The city's permanent tax rate is 1.0053 per thousand of assessed value, so no change and will not change. Resources, the building mechanical plan review, plumbing and structural permits, they were in there last year, so if you're comparing budgets, they've been deleted. They had no historical data that was necessary to keep. And so they're not in here anymore, but I wanted to put things that I had deleted out in case you pull the old budget out and wonder what happened to them. Resources, line 4, franchise. The CenturyLink Quest has been reduced based on continued decreases in this type of franchise fee. Line 5, franchise charter communication has been reduced based on current collection amounts. Line 6, franchise Northwest Natural Gas remains the same based on current collection amounts, which are lower than the budgeted amount, so I don't feel comfortable increasing them. Line 7, franchise power, Pacific Power and Light has been reduced based on current collection amounts. Line 8, franchise Recology Western Oregon Waste remains the same based on current collection amounts, again, which is lower than our budgeted amount. Resources grant has been removed for the American Rescue Plan because we don't have it, it's done. Line 9, franchise, the Bureau broadband has an apportionment. However, the city is unclear if any revenues will be received because this is a new franchise fee. We just approved this for telecommunications at the last council meeting. We're not anticipating very much money because it's brand new, but I imagine that they will be aggressive to get new customers. So there could be some revenue, and so I would like to allocate, because this is from July to June, so hopefully they'll have some money coming in by then. Line 10, grant fire staffing, continues to be a regular revenue stream as is anticipated in the next fiscal year. Again, please note that the historical data for the 24-25 represents 2 staffing grants, so it shows the higher number that year, but it's actually for 2 years because the funds for the summer of 2024 were deposited in July of 2024, and the funds for the summer of 25 were deposited in May of 2025. So the first of the fiscal year and the end of the fiscal year covered the summers on each of the other fiscal years. So it looks like 2 grants, and it was 2 grants, but it did cover 2 years. And then when we look at the data next year, there'll be nothing in the grant column for the 25-26 because we received it the year before. So just the historical data will look funny. Line 11 grant, restricted resources have been allocated. This is all allows the city to a convenient way to accept any future grants. It provides appropriations for specific grants we haven't been awarded. They are classified as potential future grants. And the offset to this, if you look in the expenditures, non-departmental grants restricted, you see the 125 here, you'll see the 125 there, so they cross each other out. We only leave it there in case we need it. Line 14, conflag mobilization allocations are resources reimbursed by the state of Oregon for Gerhardt firefighters and equipment that are deployed to firefighter incidences. This is a placeholder amount because of the unpredictability of need for these types of services. And the expenditure offsets are in the fire department, personnel services, and materials and services. So again, there's a plus and then there's a minus for these. Line 16, other fines and forfeitures has been reduced. This resource account is for the city's portion of the fines collected by Gerhardt Municipal Court. So when we write a ticket in the city of Gerhardt, we have municipal court, all the money goes into a liability account. And when that ticket is settled, we get a portion of that, the state of Oregon gets a portion of that, and Clatsop County gets a portion of it. So this line item is the city of Gerhardt's portion of all tickets received in a fiscal year. We haven't been receiving as much revenue as we have been budgeting, and just because things are so tight, I have reduced it down. Line 7, other GRFPD. The Gerhardt Rural Fire Protection District has an agreement which is valid through June 2027. No reason we don't believe that will not be extended. That's just when our current contract expires. The Gerhardt Fire Department provides prevention, protection, and suppression, aid, and emergency medical response for that service district. Line 22, other interfund loan. This is the water fund loan that I had talked about, which we would receive on a temporary basis to assist in meeting our operational costs. We will only borrow as much as we need. This year we only needed $40,000. So it just completely depends upon when the property tax comes in and when we need it, but it won't exceed $300,000. Line 23, tax and grid tax has been reduced. The LOC for the last 4 years have put exactly the same comment in their state revenue share book that they send out that says that this revenue source is projected to continue trends downwards as it has for the last 10 years. People are still smoking, just not smoking as much. Line 25, tax marijuana remains the same. The city receives quarterly payments from 2 local marijuana retail stores, as well as the state revenue share portion of marijuana tax collected. This is 2 stores provide a lot of income for the city of Gerhardt. They're a very profitable business. One of them outperforms quite substantially more than the other one. So
Just we
yeah.
skipped over lines 18 through 21.
And I'm thinking that there was no change. I felt like there was no significant change in those.
Okay.
Line 26, tax Oregon Liquor Control Commission tax has been reduced. According to LOC, changes made during the 2021 legislative session to increase compensation to liquor store agents and distillery taking room owners, as well as to pay debt service payments for a new OLCC warehouse, have translated into less liquor tax shared revenues for cities. So this is a good example how liquor sales aren't necessarily decreasing, but the state has passed legislation that they need new warehouses for their OLCC. And so they have put the debt service payment out of here, which means that cities get less money. Line 27, transient lodging tax has been increased. And this is an example of the 7% to the 15%. This rate increase does not impact the number of rentals, so we're not advocating to increase the number of short-term rentals. We're just increasing the taxes that the local businesses have to pay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I double checked and it 4148 has been signed into law as
Oh,
of
good.
April 7th, so, and
Great,
that's not necessarily resounding approval for your
Right.
recommendation.
but that's good, at least it's
It's possible.
official, right?
Justine?
Yes.
I just want to clarify that this 7 to 15% is not an increase on the owners of the transient lodging facilities. It is the people that rent from them.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yes, so when you go to rent a hotel and it has all the taxes on there, the taxes would then go from 7% to 15%.
But it's not on the owner. And I just wanted to make sure
Correct.
that's clear
Yes.
to everyone.
It's confusing to me that to double the transient lodging tax only increases the revenue by $40,000.
Just for 1 year, because we can only do it after January 1. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's a good question. So January 1, we can only put it into effect, which means that we will only see revenue for 1 quarter, because January, February, March is a quarter. So we receive the payment in April for those 3 months. Well, April, May, June, we don't get the money till July. So that will not be till the next fiscal year.
Okay.
So this particular year, we will only really see 3 months of increase, even though there's 6 months of an increase. We won't see the full increase until the next year. And
And not necessarily the highest tourism quarter. of the year.
right, not the highest, exactly,
I have a question on 2 line items before we move on.
absolutely.
Eric asked about 18 through 21. I was just
Mhm.
curious on 19. I'm gonna call it year 2 or year 1.
Right.
Previous, we went from 6K to 11K and we're projecting 15.
So these are pretty much things that the planning department and the planning commission see. So these are like developments, planning time,
Consulting time, we've increased our fees recently and have been holding.
Okay, so something we can trend towards because we went up.
well,
Yeah,
we can
100%,
we can
so-
trend for it, but you have to actually physically, this is a good example. So we have a piece of property in Gerhard that's for sale that is, relatively large, that could be several developers have been interested in putting like 6 houses on. But they don't wanna buy the property until they know that they can develop it. So they don't wanna sign anything, so they wanna ask a lot of questions. And we do charge them for staff time, but they're not paying development fees, like applications to the planning commission or not putting anything. So we really have no idea. 1 year, somebody might turn in 3 of those applications and they're kind of expensive. So we could have a really good year, and then it could just be that one year, people ask a lot of questions. So it's super hard to predict.
In a similar question on line 14 about the conflagration mobilization, because last year was large, 163K, projecting 185 this year, but the year before was only 77 from 78.
So that completely depends on how much wildfire there is. Yeah, and so we budgeted 185, but we only spend, and they only give us what's in the actual.
In previous years, were they up 150K or were they like, down lower end, I guess is.
They have been
I
higher.
think we collected like 110 one year,
We would
but
have
we
to
pay it
look.
all out to the volunteers, and the vehicles themselves make a rental while they're out, and so that goes back into our reserve accounts in our fire department.
So I just try to make sure that we have enough money in there for appropriations, otherwise we would have to come back as a budget committee and
Okay.
approve them to accept that money. So they can do 185,000 plus 10% over without coming back to ask for appropriations.
Okay, so it's more how our budgeting works as opposed to what we're
Yes,
spending.
yes.
Thank you.
Just seeing some line 27 with the TLT. So if I understand it right, we're grandfathered in at 7%, that we could keep all of that.
We keep 100% of that goes to that fund right now.
And then if it gets raised, and we have to split 50-50, the 630, is that just our share, is that just our 50%, or we have to pay some out of that?
If you
So-
look back to 24, 25, and we actually received 574,000. So if you just look, I mean, that's actual amount we received.
Yeah,
The way it would work is we would still receive 574,000.
Yeah.
But we would be able to put 50% of the 8%,
yeah,
that would be the 41,000.
right,
So with that, that's like the 630, you would take the 574 plus 41. And then in our special fund that we're going to look at later is the other 50%. And to Melina's question, so it would look like more on a normal year, if you had that 574,000, that would be 7%. Another 8% would be 656,000. So we would collect 1.2 million in transient tax, but we would have to split that 656, 328 would go here.
Yeah.
Plus the 574, and then 328,000 would have to go in our other fund.
So currently, we would be able, our current tax was established prior to any short-term vacation rental law tax, and we can keep 100% of that.
Right.
7%. We only get 50% of the 8%.
yes. So in the 630 that you're proposing, it makes up this $41,000 shortfall.
Right,
That's the 41 that we get to keep. We're not having to split to share and.
correct. There's another 41,
Somewhere else.
yes, in a special revenue fund that we'll see.
Okay, that's
Yes,
what I wanted. to-
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that 41 is
Yeah,
the
that's our,
50%
that's our
of the
capable.
8% that we
I
get.
understand.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, page 3 and 4. No, did I finish?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, just your summary. just
Yeah.
To overall.
Page 3 and 4, the administrative department, this, and just remember that this fund, supports a lot of funds. And so we'll cover each one of the ones, and there are a lot of funds in there that we can't really divide out, like electricity for this building, we don't divide that out, it's not easy to do. So a lot of times we will pay that here, and it's just in that fund, even though it supports a lot of the other departments. Personnel expenditures, there weren't any significant changes other than what we had talked about on that first page. And then on line 16, postage has been reduced. Line 18, consumables, supplies and materials has been reduced. Line 19, printing and advertising has been reduced. There was a line last year called materials and consumable services that have been deleted. We had combined it many years ago. with line 18 and it just didn't have any history left, and so it's eliminated. Line 23, insurance, property, liability, and auto has been adjusted because a portion of the insurance premium was moved to the State Street Fund. So this line item includes all the liability responsible for all departments except water and street. And according to preliminary rate information released by CIS, they're anticipating a 1.8% increase in general liability, a 1 to 5% increase in auto liability, a decrease, which I don't know if that means we see a decrease, of 8.5% in auto physical damage, and a 2% increase in cyber coverage. So they're anticipating those. Just remember again, when you're looking at historical data, it looks like our insurance has decreased, but I actually took a portion of that and put it in State Street that we'll see, and I did that this year, and divided it out a little bit differently. Line 24, City Hall maintenance has been reduced. Line 25, purchase services has been reduced. And this accounts for some professional service contracts like janitorial, window washing, and yard maintenance. Note that 2023-24 does have a higher amount, but we had a specific project that we did that year, and so it inflated it. And it was for a specific reason. Line 28, office machine maintenance has increased. Line 29, elected official expense provides the city council and mayor an opportunity for professional development. Remember that these people don't get paid, and so any support that we can give them for professional development, we want to try to continue to do that. Line 31, fuel vehicle maintenance allocations have been increased. And that is for a vehicle that we have here,
Line 30 is.
but no change.
Okay.
There was no, we have the same pieces of technology we had before. Let's hope they don't go up. Line 32, payroll processing. We use QuickBooks for our software system, and they do some things like direct deposits, some quarterly reports, and W-2 filings. We prepare all the stuff, but they actually submit it, and they do charge us to do that service. Line 33, dues and fees has been reduced. We used to use our credit card a lot because the building department, this is where those fees come, because our building department, a lot of builders would use their credit card. But the building software is separate now. It's through Acela and through the state. So their fees are now charged to there, and it really impacted ours. We don't use that credit card machine as much as we used to. Line 36, equipment allocations have been eliminated. And then overall, the administrative department's expenditures increased, but just minorly. Page 5, personnel services expenditures, no significant changes. Materials and services, there was a line item there called radio maintenance that had been reduced and is no longer showing in the budget. Line 18, fuel and vehicle maintenance has been increased. Line 19, professional development has decreased. Line 21, dispatch has been decreased. Line 22, purchase services has been reduced. Police staff anticipate the need to continue a cooperative agreement with the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office. So that continues to be in there, and they also have a program through Lexipol that they use that we charge there. Line 23 is community care, and this had been moved to the state revenue sharing, so you'll see it there. Line 24, technology software hardware has been decreased. The higher allocation had been budgeted last cycle because of software transitions. So we had to support 2 software systems when we were doing the budget last year. And we will not have to do that this year. And then this coming year. And then some of the appropriations have been moved to support court software. Expenditures, line 25, dues and fees has been reduced. Line 28 has been reduced. And then overall, the police department budget increased, but again, just very minorly. Page 6 and 7, the fire department expenditures, line 3, salary training operations officer was adjusted due to a transition in staff. Because the position requirements are different, a new salary line item was added and the description title was modified. The division chief training operations position will remain on the salary schedule. However, there's no FT budgeted for that position. So we have 3 positions on our salary schedule, but we still only support 2 paid FTE positions. Line 4, salary part-time has been reduced, which was primarily due to the fire staffing grant that we've received the last few years. It provides a lot of support and a lot of opportunity to use staff during the summer months to help cover. However, they have changed a few rules on there, and so we do still use people who are not certified the way that the state would like to see them. And so we did use this part-time labor line this year. So we would like to leave it in for next year. Line 6, the conflag mobilization labor line, and line 7, the overtime. So remember, these are the general fund. So they are supported by a reimbursement. We don't use this money unless we get promised that we're going to get reimbursed back. Line 8, salary temporary grant labor, and these allocations are offset with revenue received by a grant. Because the grant has historical data and being anticipated for the new year, we budgeted it again. It's for $35,000, but you notice this is $28,500, and the reason it says $28,500 is because there are associated payroll costs. So that $28,500 with payroll costs actually costs us $35,000 because we have to pay Social Security, we have to pay workers' comp. So those numbers are down in the benefit line item. So it does equal $35,000. Materials and services, there was a line called convention and administrative expenses that has been deleted from the budget. Line 23, supplemental accident insurance has been increased. These are for premiums for life insurance and accident coverage for our volunteer firefighters, as well as a statutory additional life insurance policy for our city police and fire volunteers. We charge the police to the police and the fire to the fire. But the majority of the money is for the firefighters. That's why we have the line item here. Line 24, fuel vehicle maintenance has been decreased. Line 25, radio maintenance has been reduced. Line 26, fire hall maintenance has been reduced. Line 27, professional development has been reduced. Line 28, gas and clothing maintenance has been decreased. And this line primarily supports the quarterly payments to the Gerhart Volunteer Fire Association for reimbursement payments for the city volunteer firefighters' gas and clothing needs. We're hoping that just based on current usage that will be enough money there. Line 30, medical examinations have been reduced. Line 31, EMS equipment and operations has been reduced. Line 32, dispatch has been reduced. Line 33, student intern program has been reduced. Line 34, cert and materials and services has been eliminated. Line 37, purchase services has been increased. We have many things in here like fire testing, hose testing, and other things, but we also have a program called First Due, which they use for training and reporting. Capital outlay, line 41, has been reduced. And overall, the fire department's expenditures decreased 7.67%. Page 8, non-departmental. So this was hit several years ago and it continues to be hit. We're not putting money there unless we have to. Unless we're told to, I should say. Materials and services expenditures, line 2, we moved street lights to the state street fund and it still exists there. Line 3, beach access was moved to the Gerhart Road district and is supported there now. Line 4, grants restricted. This is the revenue line that we put in there. This is the expenditure line. So they cross each other out. It's only if we get these grants, we appropriate so that we can spend the money and accept it without having to come back to the budget committee. Line 5, operating, repair, materials and services was moved. Line 8, interfund loan repayment. This is where we pay back the water reserve fund for any money that we borrow as a temporary operating loan until we receive our property tax. Lines 11 through 17 transfers are essential. However, due to supporting critical general fund programs and services, and per balance of per budget, we have eliminated all of these except to the building fund. And the building fund only gets it if they need it. I want to clarify that. So if the building fund is in the positive, we don't transfer this money. We don't get this they don't get it just to help them. It's only if it's needed. So this department remains the same based on last year. Page 9, line 12, represents this department shared portion. So we have 0.10 there, but it is a one person that does this job. And this is just her portion of court. Line 15, consumable supplies and materials have been increased. Line 16, jury and witness have been decreased. Line 18, dues and fees have been increased. Line 19, technology, software, hardware has been added. This appropriation amount was redistributed from police, materials and services, technology, software, and hardware. With the transition of the countywide software, it was an oversight that the Gerhart Municipal Court would be impacted. Because the new police software does not support what is necessary for court, new software had to be purchased. So we had to put a line item to support that software. Municipal court expenditures increased about 20% compared to last year. Page 10, planning department. Again, the FTE for that same person is in there, the portion that we charge to planning. Materials and services, line 15, purchase service, is the planning consultant has been decreased. We're still getting used to having a new planning person with Crest. So we're still trying to figure out, just based on our needs, what we need, and when there's certain things come up, it does cost more money. So we're just trying to find a balance there, and we hope that that's going to be enough money. Code enforcement had no required historical requirements and was deleted from the budget. Line 17, planning commission expenses has been reduced based on current and historical data. And then professional services had no required historical requirements and was deleted. And so overall, the planning department's expenditures decreased 0.88%. Parks department, just a little note on the FTE there. The 0.30 is actually 3 people that each get charged 0.10 FTE there. Personnel salary, parks, public works overtime wasn't required, so we eliminated it and deleted it from the budget. Line 13, parks maintenance and repair has been reduced. Line 14, fuel vehicle maintenance has been reduced. Line 16, utilities and water has been slightly increased. Line 17, grants, parks and events projects, no allocations because we moved this in the 24-25 to the bench fund. Line 20, equipment allocations have been eliminated in capital outlay. And overall, the Parks Department expenditures decreased 3.96%. Page 13 and 14 is just a summary of the general fund. You're welcome to look through it, and it's just a summary of everything all summed up. It also has how each category is defined and for expenditures down there if you like to look at graphs. Page 14, debt service fund 20. Resources, line 1, cash on hand accommodates for anticipated debt service payments that are required before we get our property tax. So we have to have enough cash on hand in order to make that payment before we get our property tax. Line 2, property tax current, represents allocations for both the established 2021 water financing GO bond payment as well as the proposed 2026 public safety GO bond payment, measure 4-239. Expenditures, line 14 is adding, and line 19 are just adding the principal and interest estimates based from our financial institution, pending that measure 4-239 is passed by the taxpayers. So it just kind of gives you a look of what our debt service would look like. Page 15, the top will always remain, though there are already taxpayer approved bonds, so they will stay there. The bottom one will be null and void if it doesn't pass by the taxpayers. So it's just what the projection will be. It also may change very slightly if there is different financing options or something happens with the interest rate. There are things that could affect it. But that's the best guess that our financial advisors have given us to date. Page 16, 17, 18 are our water operating fund. And this is the water that we provide to our community. Line 3, water sale receipts. This account has been increased and based on requirements to keep the water operating fund solvent, as well as the goal to continue building water reserve funds. It's recommended at least a 10% increase on the base rate here. And that is included in this assumption. Line 4, water meter install has been decreased. Line 6, other miscellaneous has been decreased. The grant, American Rescue Plan, no longer required and was deleted. Expenditure, line 15, FTE. Okay, we're on the next page. Sorry. Personnel services, again, nothing dramatic. The FTE just explains how we come up with the 3.10 employees. Line 17, postage has been increased due to continuous USPS rate increases. Line 18, consumable material supplies has been decreased due to historical usage. Line 20, telephone has been decreased due to historical usage. Line 21, utilities, electricity and gas has been increased. There was a water treatment facility equipment maintenance and it would have been combined, so it's been deleted from the budget. There was no data there. Line 24, insurance, property liability, and auto will remain the same due to part of the premium being moved to the state street fund. We spread that out a little bit. Line 31, system operations and repairs have been reduced. Line 32, water purchase has no change. Our hope, based on what we've currently spent, even with an increase, we're hoping to stay there. And the city is currently negotiating an extension on a cooperative water agreement with the city of Warrenton. So we're hoping to stay in that price range. Expenditures, line 33, chemical water analysis represents services provided for assessing groundwater monitoring, surface water monitoring, and production well data in accordance with the Oregon Water Resource Department, our permit with them, as well as standard water treatment testing requirements. And it's very expensive. Expenditures, pipe and fitting have been deleted because we merged it several years ago, so it's no longer in the budget. Meters and meter boxes and meter repairs have been deleted. Because they were moved down to water meter replacement. Line 44, water meter replacement has been increased. The city has been evaluating the water management and conservation plan, as well as the water master plan. And both of those plans have meter replacement as a very high priority. And in order to achieve the goal of replacing meters every 10 years, so in order to get through our 1,642 meters on a 10-year rotation, we would need about probably about $60,000 a year in order to do that. So we have put that in this budget, anticipating that we're gonna stay with that. We need to do that. Because when we don't do it, that means the next year we have the double amount of them that need to be replaced in order to make a 10-year rotation.
Can I ask a quick question? Nicole?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead. So just the goal of the master plan is to make sure we're being paid correct rates, is that?
Making sure that we have adequate operational infrastructure with the water meters.
And that gives us accurate information for the billings that we
Yes.
put out.
Yes.
As at a meeting age, they don't quantify the amount of water that's actually going through. So by having new meters, their revenue will stay up. And we'll have better information for the state of Oregon when we need to do all of our reporting.
And under what you're proposing, who determines that is, we diary this meter needs to be replaced? Is it due to the function? Is there a way to calculate the functioning is off? Is it just based on the timed out?
We do misbehaving meters, we try to catch them every cycle by flagging them, something looks funny and having the boys or public works go out and watch them. But we also have a master list that is based on the date that they're put into the ground.
So we diary it. This one is 10 years old.
Yes.
Okay.
And our goal would be that we replace those, whether they're operating what we think, they could last 15 years, but we would like to, the recommendation is every 10 years and we would like to meet that.
Okay. Well, I'd like to circle back to this conversation. I don't want to hold it up now, so.
Yep, no problem. Line 47, transfer to the water reserve fund, and line 48, transfer to the public works major equipment reserve fund, have allocations. However, if the water operating fund isn't at adequate financial markers, we're not gonna make those transfers. So we would love to be able to support those reserve funds. But if for some reason our revenue is not coming in where we think, we will not transfer those funds. Line 51, unappropriated ending fund balance. Ideally, the city would like to see 3 months of operating expenses in there, which would be about $300,000. But we're still trying to gain some traction and get some financial stability in there. So we've been trying to do this with rate increases, trying to change meters, trying to get some things over the last few years, the conservation blocking rates and some other things. And so we hope that this will start to increase. Pages 19 and 20 are the building, structural, plumbing, mechanical, fund 40. The beginning fund balance cash on hand is projected to be 0. This fund has been struggling to meet expenditures and is not anticipated to have any carryover at this point. Lines 2 through 6, because appropriations have been allocated in order to receive or spend in the fund, and the activity level is so unpredictable, we just put appropriations that were the same as last year in there. Line 9, transfer from the general fund. Again, this is to help support and provide a safety net. And if they're doing fine, we will not transfer the money. Line 12, FTE is part of the, so we're on the next page, sorry. it's again, the one person that does part of this job. Line 21, technology, software, hardware has been reduced. Line 22, dues and fees has been reduced. Again, they have a software system, Acela, that is a great system. It works really great with balancing the financial side of this. And they pay for the software, but we have to pay for the credit card dues. They send us that invoice, so we do have to pay that, but they pay for any software fees with that. Page 21 is the bench program. So this program required a dedicated special revenue fund for clear accountability. And the purpose is to order new benches, apply for required permits for bench dune placement, and to proceed with existing bench restoration. So this, the 25-26 budget was prepared with assumptions because the program hadn't been fully established. So when we put this budget together, we didn't have like a formal agreement that we were charging people. So I just put placeholders in there. Now, this coming year, we actually have the agreements established and have actually received 2 bench payments. So it actually is more accurate than the 25-26 figures. There's really nothing that happened in 25-26 except that we powered washed some benches down on Wellington, and now we're going to purchase at this point 2 new benches for the fund. Line 2, bench purchase and maintenance represents anticipated contributions for the purchase of sponsored city benches, which includes bench purchase, installation, and future maintenance requirements. Line 13 and 14, and capital outlay expenditures, line 17, bench purchase represents appropriations that are needed to support the bench program. And then line 20 is what we plan to carry forward to maintain some maintenance on the benches in the future. Page 22. Yeah.
How much is the maintenance on the benches?
I think, we're setting aside somewhere near 400 over a period of 10 years.
400?
Yeah, so they were paying a total of about $2,000 for the benches. I don't have that right in front of me, but 2,000, or they're paying 2,000. The bench itself is about 800. Connecting material, concrete, all that leaves about $400 to stay there to pay for future maintenance.
Okay, and what was the cost of the cleaning of the benches that you did get done?
What was that last bill?
$1,000.
$1,000. So it was a couple $100 per bench.
So we get 2 cleanings?
Probably.
Okay, thank you.
Page 22, this is our new fund. So this is a proposed new fund, which contributions would start effective after July 1st of 2027. The purpose would account for the 50% of revenue from an 8% increase for the transient lodging tax. State law mandates that these revenues be used exclusively for tourism promotion and the development or maintenance of tourist-related facilities. Because it would not be effective until January, the city would likely only receive revenue on 1 quarter of taxes in 26-27, which would be for the January through March quarter. The April through June quarter would not be received until the next budget year. So even though the tax would be effective 6 years, we'll only see 3 months of revenue in it next year.
Christine,
Yeah.
do they specify what tourist-related facilities are?
We'll talk a little bit about that. Give me just a little bit of time, Sharon, on that one. The city currently has a 7% grandfathered transient lodging tax, which again, we can keep in our general fund. House Bill 4148, the local act, does allow us to change the amount. That's one of the reasons we've been reluctant, because you used to have to put 70% to tourism. Now it's only 50. So we're hoping to make some changes there.
And they changed what constitutes, where you can use that portion.
Correct. They've done some different things in there. Line 2 transient lodging tax has an allocation of the required allotment for the increased tax amount designated for tourism promotion and the development or maintenance of tourist-related facilities. And then expenditures, again, I'm appropriating, I'm not suggesting that this be the way we spend it, but it's just an option. As long as we appropriate it, then we can have the conversations about what this looks like, and we can use resolutions to move it around if we need to move it around. But at least it allows us to be able to spend the money if we want to. Materials and services capital outlay represents amount allocations for pathways that the city can spend the dedicated revenues. City staff would recommend establishing guidelines to align the tourism promotion requirements with Gearhart's comprehensive plan goals. So I'll talk about your question at the end, okay? But we'll follow up on it, I promise.
Justine, may I ask a question?
Absolutely, yeah.
You put business incentives.
So one of the new rules in the House bill is that you can offer business incentives for restaurants and lodging. So there is flexibility there with what that looks like as far as promoting tourism and tourism related activities.
Does inserting the term incentive lock us down to some intent there rather than maybe leaving it more broad? Because there are other things to do to promote business rather than incentives. Does that make sense?
It does. And we could make that change. That could be something that we propose in the next, take that word out.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that signals intent that maybe there are other things that could be done.
Which could be there. I mean, I, as far as the rules that I've seen, and who knows, I'm sure they'll come out with more things. It's pretty generic when you read in there.
Yeah,
Of
resiliency
what's that?
grants
Yes.
and
Yeah.
So it could, yes, we could definitely make that decision next cycle, vote that, decide. Okay, page 23 and 24, state revenue sharing. These monies are received by state apportionment for certain allocations that the state gives us. Resources, line 1, beginning fund balance, cash on hand has allocations because expenditures were cautiously appropriated last year in an attempt to keep the fund solvent. And I do think we'll have some carryover funds, although we will see, we may have some additional expenses for 4th of July early, if we need new signs or something like that. Or we didn't do Earth Day this year, so we may have some, that's included in that 5,000 for carryover, so. Some things have happened that we've tried to be protective of keeping that fund solvent. Line 2, state apportionment has been reduced from the 25-26 budgeted amount because the current collection rates are coming in lower than anticipated. In good news, LOC has decided that Gearhart is growing. So I think we were 1905 this year and we're 1975 projected for next year. So we gained a few people, which will help in the formula, but just not make a significant impact overall. Line 2, community celebrations and events have been increased. These allocations support events like 4th of July for advertising and cleanup materials and the street dance, the photo booth, the barrel lighting for kids barrel lighting for lighting and kids fun table. Expenditures, line 3, materials and services have been reduced. This is to support services that the community uses, like our centralized porta potty and the dog waste disposal bags. We used to have these in the general fund and we moved them over here. Line 4, community care provides allocations to support individuals and or families experiencing immediate needs. So if they need temporary lodging, food or gas, we have some money in there. It used to be in the general fund of the police department. Lines 5 through 21 are the grants for local organizations. And during the budgeting process, the city has a state revenue sharing public hearing. So at the next meeting, we will have a public hearing for the local organizations to present if they would like to, that have submitted an application. And the city's recommended grant allocations have been placed in line 5 and then the grant applications are in your envelope. So your homework is to look at them and to go through them. Last year, I allocated and you adjusted and gave equal amounts to certain people. We did not have as many applications this year, so that may be helpful. And again, you can move these numbers around at the next meeting when we have our public hearing. So it's just my recommendation. Lines 24 through 27 are transfers for supporting the city's reserve funds. Currently due to, we've cut them from the general fund. So I would still like to see some money go to them. We still need to purchase some of these equipments as they come out of date. So I would like to see a commitment there if we can. Line 30 just builds fund stability, just because I don't want to get too close to zero there. I have left in an unappropriated fund balance. So I am recommending and asking that the budget committee consider approving this fund to transition into the general fund. I've talked with our auditors, I've looked at many other city budgets, and they include it. Doesn't mean sacrificing anything that we do out of this fund. We can move any of these activities, the grants, everything into the non-departmental section of the budget. So it's not a matter of making a compromise. There is no financial reason to keep these separate. It's just something that the city of Earhart does. It doesn't cause a problem to leave it separate. It just adds a revenue source to our general fund. So I would recommend.
And are there restrictions on those funds? Okay,
Nope.
so then wouldn't we need?
Have other cities, theirs are in their general fund and have moved it?
And our auditors could think of no reason why Earhart did it that way. It just was the way it was. And it's not, it doesn't harm anything.
You're recommending changing it next year?
Not the year after. So not, this budget would look just like this. And we would do this next year, but when you look at the budget the year after, I will present it with this merged in.
So there'd be no 45, you're gonna jump 110. But
It would
not-
just be a revenue line, you look at line 10 and it will say state revenue sharing resources, and then the expenditures would be dispersed
And that
throughout
would be for
2000.
so it'll be 7, 8, right?
Correct.
Is there a benefit to, there's no harm in leaving it, is there a benefit to putting it in the general fund?
It
From bookkeeping
It
standpoint?
becomes part of the whole picture as far as revenue, rather than running the risk of it being negative. Because if we expend things out of this fund, and for some reason we don't get the revenue, we would have to have a special committee, special meeting to, how are we going to make this fund? Yeah, like the building fund is, are we gonna transfer money in here from the general fund? Because we don't always know how much the state is gonna apportion. If something happens mid-year, even though we budget and we've always gotten this amount, we might not get it. And that would mean worse repercussions. It's easier to absorb in the general fund.
So the administrative overhead, if we keep the special fund, because we have to balance it within the special fund as opposed to being able to do it ground than the general fund.
Right. It
Sorry,
just
Eric.
has had a lot of financial problems because the fund is not growing and the state doesn't seem to be necessarily supportive to distributing. They're keeping a lot of those. They're making reasons why they need it. And so we're not seeing growth in there. And it just would be easier to keep it in there other than to have to start making transfers into it like the building reserve fund. We'll make it work, even if you want to keep it separate.
No, but it's really just a bookkeeping issue.
That's all it
And
is.
to,
Correct.
in case of not getting funded, it's easier to deal with that from bookkeeping standpoint. It's in the general fund.
Yes.
And having it as its own entity.
Correct. Page 25 and 26. So the State Street Fund is also part of what they consider the Oregon State Shared Revenues. And it's for the construction, reconstruction, preservation, maintenance, repair, and improvements of streets and roads. It is distributed to Oregon cities based on per capita distributions. Yay, we're growing. Revenue sources come from vehicle registration, title fees, driver's license fees, fuel tax, and weight mile tax. Resources line 3 state apportionment has been reduced from the 2025-26 budget amount because the current collection rates are coming in lower than anticipated. And the LOC 2026 estimates indicate that, quote, revenues are trending downward as cars become more fuel efficient or do not use gasoline to run. So our projections are actually going down for next year, which I always hate to see, even though our population's going up. Next page, line 13. Again, the FTE of our public works people and how they're divided out. Line 15, materials and services has been reduced. Line 16, insurance, so this is a new line item that I've added in there, and the state streets portion. The other portions are in the general fund and the water operating fund. Line 20, the streets and lights was added last year, and it was originally in the general fund, non-departmental. And we are proposing an ending fund balance, line 26. And again, this just helps fund stability and allow a dedicated revenue stream for the next budgeting cycle. We budget, but if you look at historical usage, we don't always use all of it. So traditionally, the ending fund balance has been a lot higher, but it has been decreasing over the years. Page 27, the Water Reserve Fund, page 71. This fund was created by the city of Gerhart to support constructing, reconstructing, repairing, extending, and improving the water system of the city of Gerhart. Line 3 is a transfer from the general fund. And this is the temporary interfund loan that we have talked about. Historically, the primary reserve source, the revenue source has been a transfer from the water operating fund. And the transfer has been allocated, but again, if markers aren't met in that fund, we're not transferring it. Transfer from the water improvement construction fund was deleted, so it's no longer in here because that fund was eliminated and had no historical need. Line 21, transfer interfund loan to the general fund has allocations to support. So we have the revenue and the expenditure because we will pay it out and then we will get it back. And those two numbers will be the same, but not to exceed 300,000. All the funds have been appropriated. However, there's only one project under consideration at this point. It's a Lane Water Loop project. The city allocates all resources to allow access to address unplanned situations. The city council approves expenditures out of this fund. So even though we appropriate for it, if something happens and we need this fund, the public works director or Chad would bring a staff report to the council and then they would approve the funds to out of here. So it's council approved. Page 28, the police car reserve fund. We have a similar thing, the city established an ordinance for maintaining, repairing, and replacing police cars. Line 4, a transfer from the state revenue fund. We added that last year, and we will continue making the assumption that the budget committee approves dividing that 10,500 equally between 3 funds we've selected. Again, allocations have been made. However, there are no specific purchases scheduled at this time, although I believe our police chief has a vehicle that is coming due.
Very good.
The city allocates all resources to allow access to address unplanned situations. We did have an unplanned situation last year or this year, I lose track, where we needed new tough books for the vehicles, and the chief made a recommendation to the council, and the council approved funds out of there to support that. So that's how that kind of works, even though we appropriate.
Brand of laptop.
Page 29, fire apparatus and equipment reserve fund. Maintaining, repairing, and replacing fire apparatus of the city. Line 3, cost recovery services was added last budgeting cycle, and we will continue to leave it in there. It was created by ordinance 945 and allows the city's fire department to recover costs associated with first responder services. Line 4, transfer from the state revenue share. So just like the police, I would like to propose to allocate some money going in there just to keep some funds coming in to support that fund. And again, all funds are appropriated. However, there are no specific projects scheduled at the time. And again, the city council has to approve anything that's spent out of there. Page 30, hazardous mitigation. So this was established as a financial reserve for the purpose of pre-disaster mitigation used for hazardous mitigation planning and projects to protect life and property from future natural disasters. A grant allocation has been added with coordinating expenses. This is a grant that is regularly received by the city of Gerhart, so we get it quite a bit to do different projects. And so we put it in the budget just so that we can get it if we have to be, if it gets to be awarded and we need a special project. The primary revenue source has been a transfer from the general fund, but again, there are no special projects. This fund is financially stable, and so we have eliminated any transfers to it. And again, allocations have been made, but we don't have any specific projects that we have lined out for next year. Page 31, the Public Works Major Equipment Reserve Fund. This is for purchasing, maintaining, and repairing, replacing public works equipment. It was primarily supported, it is primarily supported by a water operating fund transfer, and we will continue to allocate and hopefully make those as long as the water operating fund is stable. No project scheduled, and the city council also approves this expenditures out of this fund. Page 32, the building reserve fund. This was established for the purpose of purchasing, repairing, and replacing buildings. Line 3 is a transfer from the state revenue sharing, was added. And again, just like police and fire apparatus, we would like to continue to support it there. Line 17, public safety facility project, has no appropriations. At this point, we don't have any future plans for what might happen if the measure doesn't pass. So I have taken all contributions out of there. And allocations have been made, but again, no specific projects, and the city council does approve anything that comes out of the building reserve. So page 33 is public safety city bond project. This is a brand new fund, and it's been added in order to establish appropriations for the objective of acquiring property, addressing deficiencies and making improvements in public safety and city facilities. Because the council has made this project a priority, appropriations have been made in this fund, which is again, just the ability to accept revenue and pay out expenditures. If the current measure is not supported by taxpayers, the appropriations will be removed. And I think that's all about that. This is just best guess. Just appropriated some funds there.
Quick question on the professional technical would be all of it.
Architect, engineers,
Okay.
those type of people, correct. And we figured they would be heavy in the beginning. Page 34 is our Earhart Road District. So this is a separate taxing district to fund maintenance and improve roads. It has its own permanent tax rate that's independent of our regular tax rate. And so we get this every year. You guys are not only the budget committee for the regular Earhart general operating, but you are also for the Earhart Road District. And we do them at the same time. The auditors do allow us to combine them into one document, but they are a separate taxing district. That's important to know. Line 2 property tax has been budgeted at 3.25, and then again, a reduction for discounts, uncollectibles, and the 2 potential benefits, similar to our general fund. Miscellaneous, there was a resources miscellaneous line, and that has been removed. In materials and services, line 15, supplies and materials have been increased. Line 16, printing and advertising has been increased. Line 17, purchase services has been increased. Line 18, budget access maintenance was added last year. And then line 21, general maintenance repair has been increased. All funds have been appropriated, and the city allocates all resources to allow access to address unplanned situations. We have not been using this fund very much, although we have started more this year, using it for some street projects that have come up that have been minor, nothing major, but we're gonna start looking at this fund more. Page 35 and 36 is our supplementary information, salary information. And this is just to provide kind of a summary of our salaries. The distribution of annualized salary shows all positions, salary amounts budgeted, which include the certification and merit pay, and the distribution of each FTE by fund. The salary schedule shows the position steps and the annual fiscal salary amount. Please note that any individual staff that is still eligible for steps, they haven't moved over to step 7 yet, will move on the salary schedule based on their anniversary date, not the budgeted period of July 1 through June 30. So the salary schedule amounts will not always match the salary amount in the distribution of annualized salary. The salary schedule was increased 2.8% on all positions except the treasurer water clerk position, which just remained the same. There was not the 2.8% increase. The reason that is because that position is salary-wise competitive, and it doesn't need to be continuing to increase at a COLA amount. So I feel like in order to be competitive with other places, that salary needs to be frozen there, or maybe, well, for sure next year and maybe a few years ahead of that, depending on how things go. That is my recommendation. Certification merit increases are amounts given for specialized certifications or merit longevity increases. These amounts are in the distribution of annualized salary, but not in the salary schedules. And these types of payments are a flat annualized amount divided equally over pay cycles. So they're not impacted by the COLA, they don't get the 2.8% increase. And currently, the city pays 3 certification stipends, 2 to public works and 1 to police, totaling $13,500, and 1 merit stipend that the police get totaling $3,500, which merit / longevity, probably should have put that in there. And then I put just what our employee handbook says in there, and then all the information beyond that is just the legal notice and things that are required by the document, by the law that we put in there just for you to have. Do you have any specific questions?
I have one,
Yes.
well, at least one question.
Yeah.
If any of our grants been put at risk with all the money that comes down from federal and all the things that happened in the last year or so?
I think that the state fire grant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Como, is the state. So we haven't seen anything yet, and we really don't get a lot of federal funding. I mean, it's not something that we've seen, although it's kind of a side effect because when the state gets reduced federal funding, they are find a
Yeah,
place to
sometimes
find
it
it.
flows down even.
But we haven't seen anything.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time, just looking at the numbers. One of my general comments, maybe a question for next time, is the biggest decrease was in the fire department, I think, 7% and or 7, almost 8%. And as I was looking at those, there were a lot of reduced maintenance, reduced radio maintenance, reduced this maintenance. Were those just pencil mathematics exercises, or are they realistic that we can reduce those?
We're hoping they're realistic, and we are hoping that maybe other organizations like the Rural Fire District or the volunteer might be able to assist with some of those costs. So that we can provide, we hope to provide what they need, as long as nothing happens.
And over the last few years, they've seen a bit of an increase as well, so it's stemming that.
Okay.
It's part of it.
By then, you mean the Gerhart Little Fire District?
I know by the Gerhart Fire Department, from, you know, the way that has built up.
They've had some spikes and maybe we're at a plateau.
Yeah, a little bit of a plateau, and then again, we are working on some other funding as well.
Is there,
Just had the word, the call out system, I noticed it was down, the, dispatch. Yeah.
Yeah, so dispatch traditionally, the city of Seaside, we pay them, and we divide that between the police and the fire. And they haven't increased it over the last 2 years. And we've had more money in there than we've needed, so I just reduced it with an anticipation that they might increase it, I think 5%. So if you look at the historical, it's way under that, and so I just trimmed the fat and hope that the fat was not needed.
and I don't know how to necessarily ask this the right way, since the fire budget part of it is cut a little bit deeper. Should something happen with the facility, could it potentially increase costs because now we have new houses, we need new drapes? And you know what I mean, how that typically happens, you get a new facility and you need to put other things with it that weren't part of the construction budget?
We budgeted stock costs
Okay.
into that in order enough to, as a percentage, as recommended by our architects, to take care of some furniture and the things such as drapes and all that.
Yeah. And I was just kind of using that as a kind of a general term for, you know, because there's all kinds of other apparatuses and things like that. You go, oh, in having this new facility, we also need to get this thing now.
Sort of the unintended consequences of upgrading.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
It's gonna be tough for the fire chief to do this budget for this upcoming year. He's
Yeah.
going to be, you know, really careful in what he's doing. He always is very careful. He's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
But our machinery is getting older and things like that, so we'll see how this budget really comes together. I mean, transient lodging tax, yeah, that's gonna take care of part of this, but we're gonna have to have some conversations coming up about some other areas to where we might possibly have to find some new revenues. Gearhart, as you know, is probably is the 40th lowest taxing district in the 260 municipalities. We've done a really good job of staying very efficient over the years, almost so much so that now we're here.
So at the risk of a lightning bolt coming through the window and killing me, the transient lodging tax, yes, keep your distance, is math. How many units are we taxing? Have we ever looked at increasing the number of available units that can be short-term rental increase?
Do you mean increasing the number of short-term rentals that we have?
Yes.
Making more available?
Yeah.
So that's like one of the most controversial topics.
Hence the lightning
Yes.
bolt comment. I was aware of that,
Okay.
but I mean, has it ever been brought up at council or?
We talk about that and we've never had serious discussions about it as far as in a meeting, but what I will say about it is that the transient lodging tax basically comes from a very few businesses. They're the majority. You're Hart by the Sea, like minimums. There are very large transient tax recipients. The short-term rentals, a lot of them, we have some houses that never rent. They want to have the option, so they continue to be on the list, but they are not the primary revenue generator. So we've had talks about what that looks like, but I'm not sure that increasing that, I mean, politically, it's a thing. Right. But I'm not sure that it would necessarily, unless you're getting some of the really
It's the
desirable homes.
multi-unit sizes, yeah, okay.
And unless you're targeting homes, I mean, people who get a lodging tax and maybe they're on, let's say, Herschel Circle, they may be able to rent it, but it would not make revenue like it would if it was on Ocean or Marion.
Right.
And those homes, a lot of them, they're not interested.
Yeah.
Right? They're old family homes or second homes that people aren't interested in having people come in and out. That's my take on it, but I'm willing for anybody else to.
No, I think it's, as far as bang for your buck, I don't know that. I wish that would work better for us, because I would like to see that in lieu of the increase that you're proposing, because while I know that is paid for by the consumer, I'm looking at Seaside has a 10%, Warrenton has a 12%, Astoria has a 15.5%, Nehalem has 11.5%, and that's as far out as I went. So if we're at 15%, that puts us pretty high up there, and yet we've got a community. So hear me out. So now we're asking McMinimans now to, they have to collect that, which means that a room there actually does cost more for the consumer. And yet, when the consumer is looking around Gearhart, there's not that much for them to do in Gearhart. So to me, it would be critical to know, what are we going to do with that money? You know, the other half of the money that we have to then reinvest in tourism. And I don't know when we're gonna have that conversation, if it's this time or next time, but I'm prepared for it. I have a whole bunch of things to say on it, so.
Well, the way you deal with that is you market Gearhart for what it is, and you say, you want a nice, quiet, romantic weekend at the beach? Come to Gearhart.
Right.
You
You wanna take the
homes.
family? Go to Seaside.
Right. Well, and I don't disagree with that. And I, part of what I would say in favor of increasing it is, we do have a comprehensive plan that says that we should not be, our business practices or the rules that we make within the city should not increase tourism.
Mhm.
And we have a finite amount of lodging available. I mean, it's, like you said, it's McMinimans, it's drifting. And so it's not like we're going to if we advertise for our businesses here, like we're going to suddenly get that many more people staying overnight here, we might get daytime visitors, which would certainly help some of our businesses. But I would argue that by keeping it at as low as we have, we almost are promoting tourism here. Because our rooms are cheaper here than they are anyplace else. So it's actually contrary, I think, a little bit. I think that we do need to increase it. I'm a little worried about how much we're going to increase it and what we're going to do with that money. I would like to see that money going to supporting, because our comprehensive plan doesn't say there will be no tourism, it just says don't increase tourism.
Right.
Or don't make policies that will increase tourism. So I think we can support what's already here, the finite amount that we have.
I was in a conversation with someone, and it's a definition of tourism for the city that we need to define. You know, tourism is not necessarily increasing the flow of people. It's the kind of tourism. There's eco tourism where you've got paths where people can walk. It's bird watching. It was a very good conversation. The person was talking to me and was giving a lot of different ideas, and it's something that this council should, work session, talk about, do we want to define what tourism is and what is it that we want to do, because we will be having money that needs to be spent. We don't have to spend it all at once. But we can make our way through the process of what we want as far as tourism. A beautification of a park is a tourist attraction. It's not increasing the people, it's just a beautification that people can come to our town and go, oh, this is a very nice park. It's got a nice picnic table or two. It's got a little stand for hibachi. And that increases tourism in the way that doesn't increase people just, I gotta get to Gerhardt. They're having a 4th of July parade. Which, I don't knock, but that's a lot of people. And that is something that increases tourism.
The other thing that I think we don't talk enough about is the R3 zoning areas in the city. And like the condos are all R3, are they not?
Correct.
But they're not really used in that way anymore, or maybe they are, but you didn't mention them, so I'm thinking they're not.
The condos are, it's a pretty good resource, Gerhardt by the sea.
So
Yes.
we do get some revenue
yeah.
from
Yeah.
them as
They're
well.
They're big.
But then we've got the 2-block radius of
Between
single
8 and 10.
family homes, that's R3 that are
There's
not
developers.
rented out.
Yeah.
Because of the CCNR. I still wanna know about that.
Well, there's a question for Chad Jacobs. Chief, you had a question or a statement?
Well, I was just going off of what you're saying about the tourism and defining tourism and all of the ways that you do get creative with it. Would public safety a safe place to be? There's low crime rate, these kind of things. We support that by having solid public safety. Are those funds available to allocate to that?
They could be. I think that you could do things like the 4th of July parade, you might be able to hire additional during the time if they're supporting the 4th of July parade or supporting the influx, but I think you have to be very careful.
So we could hire our own police force and go out on
Well,
the beach
I'm-
and just stop everything.
Well, you'd have a hard time because the beach is in our jurisdiction, so that would be a difficulty
And overtime and salaries really aren't in this. What they want us to do is do things like, hey, Portland, come to Gerhardt. We could spend money to do that. I got an opinion from our attorney and they're like, well, if I wanted to put the roadway signs and the overtime from the police and the fire on that, would that work? And they said, no. That's already something the community has established. But anything new that attracts tourism, yes.
Could we replace the farm park poster up there at the park that says, don't go in the water when you know.
It would be how,
Surface up.
it would be how would we worded that? It would be like, we are doing site enhancement. We want to keep people safe.
Right.
Not that we're replacing something that is falling
That's
down.
falling down.
Right. It would be
And
how we look at it, but it could be that, this is an opportunity to help our visitors be safe and so those kind of things, it's a terminology thing that's really important.
Well,
That is really nice.
I mean, if you have potholes in your streets, is that a hazard for tourists?
Seaside's trying to go that direction
Yeah,
with
they are
their,
very hard.
Yeah, we'll let them give it a shot and then we'll see how
Yeah.
that works out. You know, we could, there's part of that, but yeah.
Sidewalk, fixing the sidewalks, that's a trip hazard for tourists. Well,
Um,
she's talking about safety, tourist safety.
Yeah, but, no, not according to our attorney.
but making things ADA compliant,
Could be.
improvements to
And
make it more
strollers.
accessible could be in there.
Chairs.
Also, I personally would like to see us explore resiliency grants that help our businesses in the downtown area that struggle through the winter, make it through the winter.
That's interesting,
that
that is
is-
a possibility.
That is what I would like us to use that money for, is to support the businesses that our community wants that struggle.
We can't do it for any infrastructure, but an example, just, RV Park Buds is having that drainage issue because of Gearhart Loop Road. Because Buds RV happens to be a tourist outfit, and that flooding is affecting them, we could use that to do it. But we couldn't use it to increase our water supply, even though tourists are going to drink the water. There's some kind of disconnect in there, but it's highly scrutinized, and we'll come with a lot of information, and I just sent, I think last week or the week before, the letter that I got from the attorney describing this, so if you get back into there, you can read that one, and it'll give you an idea of what the nuances are, and it's complicated.
I
just was wondering, other cities have been dealing with this. We haven't because we were grandfathered in, but other cities have been dealing with decisions about these tourist-related funds. What structure, what body have they created or used? Is it just the city council? I mean, not just, but is it the city council that decides? Do they create some other kind of body to make recommendations? What do they do?
That I don't know, because it's kind of a new world for us.
I know Seaside, currently it's whether at 30/70. Is it
70 to tourism, 30 to.
to
Yeah.
the city general fund?
They have what?
That's why we have been delaying this increase for so long, because we didn't want to just take in 30% of the city of Gearhart and 70% of tourism. Now it's coming up to be 50/50, and they've made some changes with the way that you can spend it, but not really making it too much more easy. Seaside has been banking their money and not spending it for a long time, and they actually have quite a lot of money set aside because
Really?
they just,
Oh,
they
yeah.
can't use it on infrastructure, they can't use it on anywhere that they really need, they don't want, I can't speak for them.
They've been waiting for the changes on what they can spend the money on so that it's a more appropriate fit.
So was the state measure that was passed, does it have guidelines for how these decisions will be made, or is it?
Pretty generic, I put
No.
the wording in there, it's pretty generic.
And then after that, I asked our attorneys to take a look at it, and they were like, maybe this and maybe that, but probably not this, and probably not that, so we'll bring that information. And then the bill hasn't been signed yet.
Well, she said it was.
It was on April 7th.
I couldn't find that on the webpage.
Well, that was on the internet, so I didn't check it up on, I didn't,
January 1.
And it doesn't lie, the internet.
I know. But I didn't,
It takes effect January 1st.
I'll look it up right now, I see that. Okay.
27.
process-wise, they've been having people come present to city council
I'll look it up.
on options to use those funds for.
Oh, they kind of open it up for organizations or people to come in and make suggestions or requests, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have you talked, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, okay.
Have you talked to other cities, similar to, Manzanita, similar cities?
Mainly the only thing I've done is looked in their budget. Astoria does, and Cannon Beach do a lot of one of the sections that are defined as you can do art. I can't remember the exact terminology, but art in community enhancement. And so their grants that they give, like we give, have to meet those criteria. They have to specifically meet the definition of the TLT, arts and community enhancement. And so they give out some grants for that type of activity. And like Cannon Beach did like the bus things for bus transient, they had hand painted, did some etching from a local artist. I think Cannon Beach or Seaside did the garbage cans with the hand painting from local artists. There is an art element that is supposed to be related. So to answer your question, no, I have not done a lot other than look at budgets to see how some of the expenditures, some of them have park,
Visitor
like-
centers too.
a big one, convention centers, tourism centers.
So it was in fact, LIS says it was in fact signed, and it goes into effect, June 5th of this year. But I think the biggest thing is, in order to get 50% for us to spend in a way that we deem most appropriate to support our government, we have to determine where that other 50% is gonna go. And there were some great questions that we should probably do some studying on as far as who is going to decide where that other 50% is. But I think we will not have a problem determining how to spend that other 50% in a way that people in Gerhart would be happy with. Based on my understanding of the new rules, I think it would be pretty easy to find ways to spend the 50% that's supposed to go to tourism in a way that would be acceptable to our community. I'm confident.
If I may, I shared a comment last year that if we're concerned about revenues, then we need to kind of expand the opportunities for revenues, sort of to your point of, is that from short-term housing or whatever? And certainly not for the budget committee to decide on any of the elements are suggested, but from a budget committee perspective, saying the revenue number probably needs to get bigger, and city council and businesses and others around need to be involved in that process to create more revenue. And I think reimagining some of the definitions that you have, as you brought up earlier, about what constitutes tourism versus what's not. I don't think a lot of people, go to Manzanita necessarily think, oh, this is a tourism mecca. This is like going to Disneyland. They think it's comfortable. They think it's nice. There are lots of services. There are restaurants. There's coffee shops. It's a place where people can be. So I think potentially I would still say, bottom line, we have to look for additional revenue sources. And that's going to take some creative thinking. And it's not be what's Gerhart going to look like when it grows up.
Yeah, something here.
Yeah, I had a few questions.
Okay.
With regard to this topic we're on, the other 50% that has to support tourism, could you have something like a matching grant for any business in town that promotes itself? If they put up $10,000 in advertising, you match their $10,000 to then advertise. So the people who are paying the TLT actually get some direct remuneration from it. Would that be legit?
I think that those are the type of things that are very possible under the new House bill.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Okay. This gets back to what Carl, I think, was asking earlier. So the actual amount we're getting, let's just make a rounded number here and call it $600,000. So do you have a ballpark figure for what proportion of that comes from short-term rentals?
I don't.
Just just a seat of the 10%?
I can't.
Not even at all?
No, because I don't look at it that way.
Because I know there's heavy hitters.
Christie for that.
Right, there's
Christie brought
minimums and there's the Gerhart by the Sea and those big guys. I pay the, And the
Well,
whole, the
they
whole,
will write some quarters over a $23,000 check
Yeah.
with one business.
yeah, so the whole issue of thinking of revisiting the STR, you're only getting $35,000. I've been thinking over the last few months about that whole thing, but you're only getting $35,000 in permits. So if you bump it up, if we open up more permits, we don't let it go to zero, but we consider it and allow people to add back in up to some amount. I was just wondering, how much money is that really gonna gain us? Is it worth the political hassle of trying to get it?
Well, for sure, $600 a year. Because each
For
one
a
of those,
Yeah, I know, but total we're getting $35,000.
I know it's not.
So I don't know if that's substantial. The other thing here is, so in this one quarter, you're gonna get $40,000 into the general fund from this proposed VAT increase. So for a year, when we get, when it gets underway, you're gonna get 100, let's just, somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. Right?
Maybe 300,000.
Well, but we only get to spend 150 of it in the general
No,
fund.
I think we will get an additional $600,000. It has to be split 50-50.
Then why are we only getting 40? Why are we only
Because it's
getting
the
80?
slowest season and it's.
Because
in the
it's
end.
only one
okay,
quarter.
okay.
January,
Okay, 'cause it's
February.
the wrong quarter. Okay, all right, so
Why
for,
aren't
so
we
for,
starting it in July?
July, this
Yes.
July, because the House bill legislation I read said it's not effective until January 1 of 2027.
I thought she just.
It says effective date June 5th, 26, but it might be, I don't know. I would have to revisit the verbiage. It might actually be written in there that it goes.
Said it all.
That is, yeah, I don't know.
And I put that in, I put the actual bill in there. And I think it's towards the bottom.
that's an increase of $300,000 to our general fund.
Right.
So-
Well,
So that sounds pretty good.
right, as
So-
long as it doesn't scare away the consumers, the people that, they're looking in the rooms, they're suddenly gone up so
No,
much and
that's whatever.
it slows down.
Right.
That could be a problem.
All these
Right.
people with their Beamers and their Porsches and their.
So what's their choice? Do you think people, there got to be studies on this for this kind of a tax and whether or not it really impacts the businesses, the rich businesses claim that it does. If the person is thinking, oh, I'm gonna go to McMinimum's, but the rate went up there, they by 7%.
Well, that's just our portion. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it went from, the tax went from 7 to 15%.
Right, so that's just our increase, but the state has also increased it on their behalf by 1.5%.
That impacts everybody.
Right, and then they have their own business expenses
Right.
that cause them
But
to.
that consumer who's looking to come to the house for the weekend
Yes,
and looks at
that's
the minimums or the drift haven, sees whatever the rate of the room is, and thinks, oh, I gotta go to Seaside because it's, because their transient taxes 3% less. I don't find that. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
It's just the overall cost of the room, but what I'm hearing in the Cedar meetings that I'm going to is that overall tourism right now is not doing, at least on the coast, is not doing as well as it typically does. We're in a lull right now for whatever reason. A lot of folks aren't coming down from Canada like they normally do. So there are other factors, people aren't traveling as much, they may just be not doing vacations. So all of those things come into play.
But I don't think that our transit tax is the biggest, is any of the big mover in those people's decisions.
That's not even more coast specific, or it's not Gerhart specific, or even coast
Right.
specific. It's
Right.
national tourism's down, the price elasticity is what that is, the threshold paying is not gonna be.
But it's interesting on the North Coast, it seems to be like where the tail that wags the dog. The coast is usually the last one to go down, the first one to come up.
Yeah.
In regards to
Right.
tourism dollars, occupancies and average rates are actually up in the area up until now. I mean,
Right.
there's the last few quarters that have been a little bit.
But separate from the exact argument, should we do it or not? If we did it, and you gained $300,000 into the general fund, that seems to me substantial. How much other, to what degree does that help solve our problem? Just by doing it through the TLT, as opposed to, Kurt's point here, other sources of revenue. What else do we have to look at? How much more do you have to gain?
What are the
Well, I'm
increases
not sure if we would necessarily need to gain any more than that.
for a period of time anyway? I mean, none of our other resources are gaining. I mean, our taxes are still $1 per thousand, $1.01.
Yeah.
And that, and our expenses have grown faster than that, 3% increase in that every year because of what's out there.
Urban growth boundary.
We're gonna have to look at
expansion.
the future at Gearhart and the services, the number of people and the expenses and all that, and still consider some raises, I think, in the future, but in the short term.
Like five years, so to
5
speak.
years probably,
This helps really get us over an immediate hump.
Well, yeah.
Looking at.
as long as we stay efficient.
You've seen that they're projecting that COLA is going to be 4.8 next year. Okay, and that's just on wages alone. And you go, that $300,000 is going to disappear in 5 years. So it
Right,
would
but it buys us
behoove
some
the
time.
council
Right.
to start looking
Right.
and
Right.
really exploring. I mean, it's,
Right. So it's not a long-term solution, but it is definitely something we have.
It will,
short-term
yeah.
solution.
it will allow us to at least breathe
Right.
for a few years,
Right.
but we will
Right.
need to start looking. I mean, it needs an increase in short-term rentals. I don't believe we can make up what we'll be
Yeah.
losing every year by COLA alone
Right.
on our wages.
Right.
And then we got inflation.
I went to a class about raising the permanent tax rate in a community, and it was the most highly attended class there. They basically said, "Hi, welcome, it's impossible, thank you for coming." No community has ever been able to raise their permanent rate in Oregon. And
Yeah.
because it takes a vote of the people to say they want to pay for the job.
I just have one or two more things. First of all, I just want to acknowledge, it seems like a lot of the belt tightening in this budget is coming from the police and the fire departments. I just want to acknowledge to our chiefs that we appreciate that. And the one thing I did note was, it wasn't a lot of money, but percentage-wise, it was a lot. It was professional development got axed in both of those departments. And I want them to develop themselves professionally, and I'm starting to see that part of the budget thing. I hope that's just a temporary thing, and they can find a way to bring it back up. So as well. And one last thing, the water increased 10%. So we just went through a big overhaul of our water rate structure just in the last couple of years. And so now we're doing another 10% increase.
The water conservation was intended to reduce revenue in the theory where if you increased the price, people would then use less water. I'm not so sure that that works super successfully here, just because we do have a lot of people who have second homes and they don't monitor their water and they don't care about the price. So it's been beneficial overall. I think the general people who live here and work here and are concerned about their budget do watch it and try to stay within their.
It's really low for our area, right?
Yeah, that's the other
That
thing.
was
The reason that we were increasing was just to bring it up to speed because we're really underfunding ourselves. I didn't realize that it was done as that it was intended to be a water
It was both.
conservation.
It's both,
Okay.
trying to do both.
And you knew that this was going to be, what the council decided to do was do this in lifts
Yeah, right.
rather than all at once.
Right.
And so as Dana was saying, we're still one of the cheapest water utilities in the county.
So is this 10% kind of just the establishment of that same project you've been under for the last couple of years and just?
Council directed us to revisit this every year during this particular period of time.
Okay.
And then we'll be making some reporting to them as well during the process, but that's what we're recommending.
We chose to do it incrementally so that we didn't shock people into letting
Right.
their grass die.
Yeah, right,
You know, we want
Right.
them to continue consuming the water
right.
and not stop, but we are gonna have to eventually get up there, so.
Even, so this is an ongoing project.
Mhm.
And the line, just E-Verified, it is 27.
Yeah, so it's on section 2.
Yes.
Thank you.
The water rate increases, you said the base rate's going up. Are the more consumption tiers going up as well?
Everything would increase because it's based off the base rate.
So
So
everything's
everything
going
goes
up.
up. All the rates would go up, because they're based off of the base rate. Yes. Any other questions? So I just wanted to comment that the city is proposing a change that will significantly impact our TLT businesses. It will be essential that moving forward with any TLT tax increases, it will require being supportive partners because it will affect them and impact them. It also means that we'll enter into a more active role in being required to promote Earhart. So instead of using tourism, I'm going to choose to use promote Earhart. I encourage you to move away from the negative connotations that the word tourism can instantly create. Because when you hear tourism, you think of arcades, you think of carousels, you think of things that target certain groups of people. And promoting Earhart we can use models, and I encourage you to look up words like ecotourism, which endorses responsible travel to natural areas that conserve the environment, sustain local well-being, and involve education for visitors. I'm not promoting or advocating for these programs because there are specific programs, ecotourism being one of them, also sustainable tourism. But they have done, and mostly in international countries, a lot of research, and they have implemented a lot of programs to try to take that word and change it into something that benefits the community. So I encourage you to do some research on it. Overall, the budget this year demonstrates that Earhart needs access to more revenue to operate at the same level. And the city is aware that asking for more money also translates into improving operational efficiencies, reducing waste, and maximizing performance. And we will strive to meet these objectives as a staff, because it does take us to tighten up in order to take our budget and reduce it. Do either of you want to make any comments before we go, or you're good?
Just the vehicle thing we talked about, and like that, here, thinking about how the city can make more money. I mean, it's imperative. Something's gotta happen. And I kind of feel like we're treading water right now with staffing and things like that, as it is already. So looking to the future, we're gonna need more. Yeah, thank you.
Don't hesitate to reach out to Chad and I if you have questions. We're here to help, and email or call us or come in. We'll do the best we can do to try to answer your questions. And the supplementary information that was on the agenda, those are links that you can go to, and you can click on them in your agenda email. So if you open up the agenda, you can click on them and they take you to the pages. All of these pages are some of the information I've already provided, the key pieces that I would like you to look at, but they have a lot of really great information out there. They have a lot of a 2-page thing on property tax 101, on the LOC revenue toolkit that's super beneficial. They have a lot of lodging tax and kind of the history and where it goes, and then the new House bill, so. Look out there at different ones if you have time, write down questions, and we look forward to the next budget committee.
So before I close officially, first of all, I want to thank you for, you represent the Herculean effort of the entire staff, never mind the 2+ hours that you've been talking. So thank you for all your work and getting us through this. And just a reminder, as Justine just said, next meeting, 13th of May, and then I put on that, correct?
Correct.
All right, anything else? We're adjourned.
If you want.
Yeah. You know,